Your math today is called Relating Units of Measure, and what we're doing is kind of just what the title suggests, is that we're looking at the different units that we use to measure length, and so far we've talked about millimeters, centimeters, and meters, and we're going to just kind of talk about how those units work with each other. If hopefully you recognize these little shapes that I'm going to show you, and I wonder if I can just make sure my camera can point down to them. We're used to these shapes being used for place value. So we have our ones, our tens, our hundreds, and our thousands. Just a little bricky block. And what's great about how our numbers are organized is that we use kind of tens. As soon as we have 10 ones, well, you can make 110, and then it's easier to kind of hold 110. It's easier to think about 110, or it's easier to think about 3 tens instead of 30 ones. As soon as I have 10 tens, then I have 100, and as soon as I have 10 100s, I have 1,000. And what's really cool about the units we use when we measure length is they work exactly the same way. It's called the metric system, and that's what we use when we talk about millimeters, centimeters, and meters. So if we think about millimeters as being our ones, if we have 10 millimeters, it gives us 1 centimeter. Okay, with me so far? And you can even see if you have one of these, you've got your centimeters and you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 millimeters. Okay, I believe it. Now, if I have 10 centimeters, that actually doesn't get me to a meter. 100 centimeters is what gets me to a meter. So there is a unit in between meter and the centimeter. And that unit is called a decimeter. And the short form for decimeter is dm. And you really don't use decimeter in the real world, but it's important to know that this unit exists because it continues the pattern of 10, 10, 10, 10. So 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. 10 centimeters equals 1 decimeter, and 1 decimeter, or in 10 decimeters, equals 1 meter. Okay, if we understand that, then that's going to be at least put us in good shape to take on this activity. Now, if I really wanted to think about just in millimeters, so we know that there's 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. There's 100 millimeters in 1 decimeter. And then there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Okay, think about that. Kind of interesting. So let's take a look at the worksheet that's in front of you here. There's a quick review at the front. It says 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So 1 centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. It's a great fraction. Or you could say it's 0.01 meters, so 1/100th of a meter. Right? That's how decimals work. You could write the length of the fishing pole as the following. So we see this fishing pole is 120 centimeters long. We could say it's 1 meter and 20 centimeters long. We could say it's 1.2 meters. Or we could even say it's 12 decimeters. Okay, and then these are going to be some really helpful conversions when you do your work at the bottom. So it's just a reminder that in 1 meter, there's 10 decimeters, just like I showed you in the beginning part of the video. In 1 meter, there's 100 centimeters, and in 1 meter, there's 1,000 millimeters. You can look at some of the other comparisons here. So now it just wants us to make some conversions. So if there is, if 1 meter has 100 centimeters, then 5 meters would have 500 centimeters. And that's what you would be looking to write for your first answer. And you just get a lot of practice making these conversions. Let's try a tricky one. This one's tricky because it uses a decimal. 0.5 meters is how many centimeters? So you need to know that 0.5, it means 5/10, which also means half. So if 1 centimeter equals 0.01 meters, 1 centimeter equals 1/100th of a meter, then 50 centimeters is what's going to give us 0.50 or 0.5 meters. So 50 centimeters. 3 centimeters equals how many decimeters? You have to be careful because in 1 decimeter, there's 10. Just looking at this one down here. In 1 decimeter, there's 10 centimeters. So if you only had 3 centimeters, you don't have very many decimeters. In fact, you have less than 1. You're going to have 0.3. Okay, see how you do as you work through this page making these conversions. And remember, don't forget about those conversion charts helping you up there. On the back side, we have scissors, a book, a shoe, and a person. What you're going to do is you are going to be estimating and measuring, rounding to the nearest centimeter, meter in length. So you're going to estimate in centimeters how long a pair of scissors are. So I'm going to see if I have scissors. I don't, but I have a book. So I'm going to grab a book and I'm going to estimate the book. It says Math Makes Sense, which is a textbook, but you could pick any book you want. I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to use I'm going to estimate first. The length of this book, I think, is going to be 12 centimeters. Let's check it out. I'm pretty close. Line up the 0 at the beginning of the book, and I'm getting 14, just a little over 14 and a half. So my estimate was 12. My length in centimeters was just a little bit over half. So I'm going to say instead of 12.5, I'm going to say 12.6. In millimeters, well, I'm just going to count by 10. So I could say instead of being at 14, if I was counting by tens, by the time I got to 14, I'd be at 140. And then I could just count the ticks up to 146 millimeters. In meters, well, it's definitely not a whole meter. It would be decimal 146 meters. So pretty far away from being a meter. You're going to do the same thing for a shoe, scissors, and yourself. See if you can figure out how to measure yourself.